The NHL is horrified of the Winnipeg Jets as they continue to take the Stanley Cup playoffs by storm, and one player in particular is propelling them to victory. We're going to break that down, as well as some shocking comments from head coach Scott Arniel on a return that could happen in this series and will probably put this series to bed. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening across the league in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs, and it has been an incredible playoff so far. We're going to, touch on the Edmonton Oilers game in another video, but it's been an incredible playoff so far. And you want to stay up to date with the Jets, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But Casey, a lot to get into today. The Winnipeg Jets go up 2-0 on the St. Louis Blues with a result that, I feel like a lot of people probably had in their brackets, to be honest. But I did think that the St. Louis Blues were going to put up a little bit more of a fight, but I think the Jets are just overpowering them, and they're doing it with a couple injuries as well. But let's dive right into it. What a crowd in Winnipeg, and honestly, Winnipeg is one of the best crowds ever. We know that with the whiteout. The roof might pop off the building. This, of course, is from Paul Bissonnette. And just a madhouse. Hellebuyck was solid yesterday as well. He had a fantastic game. And the Jets go back to St. Louis up 2-0. And Kyle bleeping Connor, he had another fantastic game as well. He's putting up the points. Casey, what are you seeing from the Winnipeg Jets in general in this series so far, but also Kyle Connor? He's been everything for this team so far, and they need it. They need him to be that guy, and he has been so far.
I mean, this team has looked dominant. We knew coming in that this team was hot and they were going to put up a good fight to the St. Louis Blues, but we also thought the Blues were going to fight back a bit. We thought this was going to be a closer series than what it actually is right now, and it's just showing who the better team is, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. I know it is home ice advantage. We're going to have to get to see them on the road now in St. Louis, but I don't think there's much that's stopping the momentum of this team. This team has been hot, especially their top two guys here in Kyle Connor, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Mark Scheifele. He's leading the team right now in playoff points with 5. He has been on fire to start this series. I mean, 5 points in 2 games. You can't ask for much more than that. And like you said, in the crease, Hellebuyck is keeping them alive and making those game-saving saves that we know from him. And one thing that I've just noticed from watching these games is that it seems like this Jets team is a little bit bigger than the St. Louis Blues, and there's a lot more physicality on their end. It's like they want it. They've been to the first round, and they've been put out the last couple of years. They want to put it to bed, like you said. They want to go out there, maybe get both of these games on the road, get the sweep, and get those doubters out of their head.
Absolutely. And like Ryan Whitney says here, it seems like a little bit of a different team in terms of playoff performances. They do look a little bit different. I think what you brought up in the physicality is definitely a factor as well. And I mean, when you look at everything that's happened this season, Scott Arniel said yesterday that Winnipeg has learned all kinds of lessons through 82 games, but it can never equal to what happens in the playoffs with how physical and fast it is. These guys, they recognize that this is how we have to play every game. It's going to be a grind. So it seems like a mental, switch has flipped here for this team, because we've seen it through the first 2 games. You bring up a good point. We saw that huge hit on Kyrou, kind of admiring the puck. I don't know what he was doing there. I should have just chipped it in, but gets absolutely blown up by Logan Stanley. The playoffs are physical. Either you play physical and you make it through, the trials and tribulations of the playoffs, or you don't and you go out in the first round. And right now, the St. Louis Blues, while they're still in the mix, they've been in every single game. The Winnipeg Jets are just overpowering them and closing out the games. And this is something that, when you look back at last season, even in the playoffs, they haven't been doing. But I do want to touch more on Kyle Connor, like we alluded to, and your thoughts on Kyle Connor as well. And you can see here from this Twitter user, Kyle Connor, after 40 minutes against the St. Louis Blues, he is Wayne Gretzky, it looks like, out there snapping it around and scoring goals. But he's been fantastic, and this team needs not only him, but obviously, Mark Scheifele as well. Gabe Vilardi's out of the lineup. We'll touch on him in a little bit as well. But, they need a guy like Kyle Connor to be the guy for the team, and he has been that so far through this playoff series. I want to get into some stats and then your thoughts on it, Casey, that, Kyle Connor always with the Winnipeg Jets in the playoffs has been close to a point-a-game player or a point-a-game player in the playoffs every single year he's been with this team. He's doing it again this year. So he's been fantastic every time in the playoffs except for 1 year. So again, following through on that once again. And in terms of, most playoff game-winning goals in Jets or Thrashers history, which, Thrashers didn't have much there, but Kyle Connor has 5 of them, leads the way, right? So he's been absolutely fantastic. What are your thoughts on Kyle Connor in this series so far?
Yeah, this guy's been electric. I've been a big Kyle Connor guy for a long time. I think he's been one of the most underrated goal scorers in the league, even though he's putting up good numbers every year. I just feel like people don't give him his flowers because I think this guy has probably one of the best shots in the entire league, up there with Austin Matthews. I would even go up there to say I think this guy can use his speed and his goal scoring to his advantage, and we're seeing that here in the playoffs. I mean, that game winning goal from him was unbelievable. It was absolutely filthy, one of the best I've seen in a while, and it's good to see this guy get into form in the playoffs and just be a really good contributor for this team, because they're going to need this guy to be hot throughout the rest of the playoffs. They're going to need him to score those crucial goals, and it's just showing that he's Mr. Clutch right now. He shows up in crunch time, and it's just great to see that he's doing this for this team. I want to use a comparison that maybe a lot of Jets fans won't like, but this guy's really reminding me of Willie Nylander on the Maple Leafs right now. He is the guy in the playoffs that is going to step up for this team, and he clicked into another gear. And when Kyle Connor gets into another gear, the NHL needs to watch out, because this guy, if they go far in this playoffs, he's going to have a nasty goal total for sure.
I do truly believe he has to be the guy for this team. Like, I do like that William Nylander comparison. I think that a lot of Jets fans in the comments, you're going to hear that's for sure.
Oh,
but, I do like that comparison, because as much as the Leafs lose in the first round, he's the guy who always shows up. And I feel like Kyle Connor is always that guy who's been very consistent for the Winnipeg Jets. He does, I think, need to take it to another level. And I think we're seeing that right now. 2 game-winning goals in the first 2 games of a series. And obviously, Hellebuck wasn't fantastic in the first game by any means, but a big bounce back performance. And I think that's a big thing, because if you let that snowball, that would have been an issue as well, because of what we saw last year. And, he's a Vezina candidate. We all know what he can do in the regular season. Hasn't been great in the playoffs the last couple of years. So nice to see him get a bounce back performance as well, just for himself. But a couple other things I want to touch on before we wrap up here, Casey. The Winnipeg Jets are doing this all without one of their best players, honestly, I think, this year, and a guy who had a career season this year in Gabriel Vilardi. He was on the ice, and this is 2 days ago, ahead or just after Game 1. He was on the ice for nearly an hour with his teammates at an optional skate. He ramped up his skating and progressively started shooting harder. No estimate from head coach Scott Arniel when he will return. But I don't know if they want to rush him at this point in time. Could they use him in the lineup? Absolutely, right? I mean, he had a career year this year. He is another physical body. Like you were just talking about how the Jets almost look bigger than the St. Louis Blues, which I feel like, coming into the series, a lot of people thought the opposite, myself included, honestly, but it's kind of spun on its head a little bit. This is another guy who is physical, who can add some more goal scoring as well. So no timetable. I think they're playing well without him. But now you might be able to add this piece, and not only this series, but for the rest of the playoff run, because you're up 2-0 in this series. What does this do for the Jets? Because I think that this would bring them to another level as well.
Yeah, this is a huge game changer for the series, because this is a guy who was a very big part of getting the Jets team to where they were this season. He had a career year for himself, and it put up some crazy point totals. But like you said, this guy can not just get it done on the stat sheet. He can get it done all over the ice with his physicality. And I think bringing another guy in that can finish his checks hard and put some bumps on the St. Louis Blues team is definitely going to be a huge X factor here. And if you get this guy back, maybe Game 4, maybe they're trying to close out the series, I think it's put to bed at that point. I think it definitely is bringing this guy back in. He's been hot all year. Be interesting to see how he is coming off of that injury, but I know he's definitely buzzing to get out there and play some playoff hockey. And to your point, I think maybe not rushing him back is the best idea. I mean, you are up 2-0 on the series. If this series does get close, maybe then you bring him in, because you're like, okay, we need to have Gabriel Vilardi impact in this series. And I think the judgment call will come on Scott Arniel here to kind of say, hey, let's get him in the lineup. I think we need him. We need his ability. We need him to create some chances for this team, which is what he's done all season for us. So I think that judgment call will come down to if this series is close, but I definitely do suspect and do hope that he will be back for the second round.
I think that he will be back definitely for the second round, but I just wonder what, how he plays into this first round, if he does at all. Again, like it would be a boost for this team. It's a great point, right? But one last thing I wanted to touch on very quickly before we wrap up is the impact score chart from the last game. And, if you take a look here, Luke Schenn, how are you? Look at that positive impact for the Winnipeg Jets. This is why you go out and make trades like that, who are not like the biggest name players, but guys who are going to help your team in the playoffs. I can't think of a better defenseman to add at the deadline for any team going into the playoffs than Luke Schenn personally. So I just wanted to point that out. And then, of course, Mark Scheifele leading the way. That was just, again, I think this is why you go out and make trades like that. Luke Schenn is going to be a difference maker, I think, for this team. I wasn't sure how they were going to fare in this series. I have to be honest. I thought St. Louis coming in, they were very hot, and they're going back home, so you never know what's going to happen at this point, but that's why you go out and make trades like that. But we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about Kyle Connor, the Jets' performance as a whole in their first 2 games in the playoffs at home. The crowd is unbelievable. Connor Hellebuck with a bounce-back performance, even though they won both games. And, of course, Mark Scheifele stepping up to the plate as well. Let us know what you think. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on around the league as the playoffs progress. And, of course, the Winnipeg Jets.